Welcome, friends, to another installment of On the Porch with Pastor on a beautifully sunny, warm November day. This is a lengthier installment, so I'm going to jump right into it without delay. This one is called A Time to Die, or Concerning Christian Burial. I know a lady named Alice who needs to die, and soon. She's my friend, and I don't want her to die, but die she must, and quickly. Alice and I belong to the same Quaker meeting. She's buried two husbands and has been a widow since 1957. Her husbands are buried with their first wives in their respective hometowns. Her own pre-selected tombstone is in the Glen Cove Cemetery in Knightstown, alongside her father. Some folks are concerned about what might happen with our computers when we hit the year 2000. That doesn't concern Alice a bit. She has a tombstone problem. Alice had her tombstone engraved in 1981 when she was 76. She had her name carved on it, the year of her birth, 1905, and believing she would die in the 20th century, 19 carved in for the date of death. The numbers are carved deep, so if Alice doesn't check out before the year 2000, she'll need a new tombstone. She almost died in 1998 at the age of 93, which would have solved her problem. Her son hired a woman to sit with her, but the woman took sick and Alice ended up tending her. Alice was telling me about it. Poor thing, she said. She hadn't eaten well. So Alice fed her green beans, lettuce, and broccoli, and within 3 days both were improved. Alice attributes her own good health to clean living. No smoking, no liquor, no coffee, no soda pop, and easy on the meat. She's particularly fond of green beans, lettuce, and broccoli. She is slowly becoming resigned to her tombstone dilemma. It's going to be somebody else's problem, she says. I can't worry about it. The somebody else is her son Jack. He'll take care of it. He's a good boy, she reports. He'll take care of my tombstone. Alice wants me to conduct her funeral, but is concerned I'll use the occasion to slip in some liberal politics. She is, in her own words, a red-hot Republican. Her second husband was a Democrat, which he didn't reveal until after they were married. He'd voted for Eisenhower, so she assumed he was Republican. She doesn't believe in divorce, so she just toughed it out. She's thinking of having the word Republican added to her tombstone. I'm not certain what I want on my tombstone, or for that matter if I even want one. I am considering cremation, despite the objections of a Jehovah's Witness acquaintance who doesn't believe in cremation. He believes that when Jesus comes to establish his kingdom on earth, we'll re-inhabit our bodies. Unless, of course, we've been cremated, then we're out of luck. He's found a verse in the Bible to back him up and can't be persuaded otherwise. The reason I'd opt for cremation is because a cherry wood casket costs $4,000, which is how much I earned the first year I worked. Though I make more than $4,000 a year now, that figure is embedded in my mind as a year's wage. I worked at Johnston's IGA sacking groceries, stacking empty pop bottles, mopping up busted pickle jars, and sweeping the parking lot. Lost you there for a second. I don't know what happened. Sweeping the parking lot. I worked every day after school and all day Saturday and earned $4,000. I'm not about to spend that money on a casket, even one made of cherry wood. The Oldenburg Casket Company is headquartered in Indiana. They are one of the world's largest manufacturers of caskets, 700,000 units a year. The increasing popularity of cremation knocks that number down a bit each year. Their cheapest casket retails for $225 and is made of particle board. If you're a ward of the state, that's what you'll get when you die. Their most expensive casket sells for $20,000. It's pure bronze with 24 karat gold hardware, lined with velvet and with rounded corners. This is the casket for queens and presidents. It is guaranteed for 75 years. So if you dig up your loved one 74 years down the road and the casket is damaged, they'll replace it for free. If the Oldenburg if the Oldenburg Casket Company goes out of business before then, you're out of luck. The particle board casket is guaranteed for 30 days. I know an Amish man who makes pine box caskets with rope handles for $100. That's a fair price for a casket. I'm thinking of buying one and storing it in my garage so it'll be there when I need it. He guarantees his pine box caskets for 100 years. He says if you come back in 100 years needing the casket replaced, he'll build you a new one for free. If I were buried in a casket, I'd have to be interred in a graveyard, which I don't want. The place I want to be buried is in the field behind my parents' barn, under the pine tree where we buried our dog Zipper in 1977. Since our town prohibits backyard burials, cremation is looking more attractive. I want my ashes next to Zipper, either spread on the ground or buried in a canister. Makes no difference to me. If my wife desires, she can have her ashes put there also. She didn't know Zipper, but I think they'd have gotten along just fine. Concerning music, there are certain songs I'd like at my funeral, namely, Blessed Assurance, Abide with Me, and Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. I would also like Mozart played, but only if it can be done well. If not, skip it. I don't want any rock music. This is a trend I'm seeing when younger people die, and I'm not for it. If it wasn't written before 1940, I don't want it sung or played at my funeral. I hope careful thought is given to who preaches my funeral. I don't want somebody giving an altar call. People feel guilty enough at funerals without having more guilt heaped on. I would prefer a big-hearted preacher giving my eulogy, someone inclined to widen heaven's doors. I don't want to leave folks wondering whether I made it. As a Quaker pastor, I've presided over numerous funerals, except we don't call them funerals. We call them memorial services. We sit around and say nice things about the deceased, whether they deserve it or not. Then we read the 23rd Psalm and quote from the Gospel of John about heavenly mansions. Chock full of Quakers, we speculate. Simple Quakers in simple mansions. Alice believes all her family are there, her mother and father, her 8 brothers and sisters, her 2 husbands. She loved both her husbands and isn't sure with which one she'll share a mansion. I'm betting on the Republican. Oh, what subtle humor he puts in his writing. It used to be cheap to die, but not anymore. There are casket makers, cemetery owners, florists, musicians, morticians, tombstone carvers, embalming fluid salesmen, and grave diggers. Everyone has a handout. Dying has become big business in America. Tens of billions of dollars a year. That's just a guess. The Oldenburg Casket Company wouldn't confirm it. When it comes to money, they're tight-lipped, which makes me think there's lots of money in it. If I were dying, the last person I'd spend time with is the mortician. First, I'd play pitch and catch with my sons. They're always asking me to throw the ball with them, and too often I'm telling them I don't have the time. It's a cruel thing to tell your children you don't have time for them. I hope they don't remember that about me. Then I'd call my father and ask him to tell me the story of my birth one last time, how I was brought into this world against stunning odds. It fills me with confidence, knowing that God has been pulling for me since birth. With those commitments met, I would hasten to my wife. I'd ask her forgiveness for the many times I cared more for my happiness than hers. For the first 8 years of our marriage, Joan worked full-time to put me through college. I repaid her by being a grouch and not helping with the housework. The day we married, we each vowed to serve the other. My wife has taken that pledge far more seriously than I. That done, I would speak to the good Lord about his heavenly mansions to see if there were vacancies. I wouldn't be picky. I'd sooner have a broom closet in the house of the Lord than a mansion down below. Finally, I'd open my Gentle Shepherd hymnal to number 452, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms, and I would sing to the heavens. I'd sing of blessed peace with my Lord so near, then snuggle deep into my pine box casket, safe and secure from all alarms. Death jogs our minds about what's most important. It separates wheat from chaff. Life isn't about money and big houses or fancy cars and titles. It's about family and friends and our relationship with God and whether we love. We can't fit all that on a tombstone, so we carve our names and our dates of birth and death and hope that somewhere between those two dates, life was well lived. As I read this, I contemplate. The church has done a really good job, I think, in most cases, of training people how they should live in light of the gospel and eternity. One thing I wish we had done perhaps better is teaching our people how to die well. We spend a lot of time trying to teach them how to live, and it's been my experience that many don't know how to die, how to put themselves safely in the arms of a loving God and trust that He will welcome them home at the appointed time. I don't want to be like Alice and outlive my tombstone. I certainly don't want to be like the writer of this text this evening who hopes she dies soon so she doesn't have that problem. But I think we would do better to consider death. I've found that the more I consider my own death, my own mortality, and its inevitability, the more it inspires me to live well, to live better. I guess you could sum it up by saying only when you think on your death can you truly live. I love you. It's been a long one this evening, but keep your eyes to the skies because He is coming soon.